earlier in life. But okay, so you've been studying this protocol for a long time.
I have.
You actually emailed me a month ago with questions about, what do you do if you're vegetarian? Where did you hear about this?
I was just looking online,
Okay.
looking for a new option, something different. I had started reading about HCG protocol, and then in somebody else's YouTube video, they mentioned your book. So that's why I went looking for your book.
Do you know who it was?
No, I can see your face, but I don't know the names.
I just want to give them props. If you knew who it was.
No. But I did. I ordered the book then on my Nook, and I was reading the book. And then that just brought me to thinking a lot about why I eat and how I eat and paying attention to eating without the hunger and kind of noticing my own habits. And then I started watching my kids. I have little kids, 4 and 6 years old, and just watching how they eat without me going, hey, you have to have a clean plate club tonight and clean your plate. And, they don't eat like that. They eat when they're hungry and they're done and they walk away. And, they do kind of graze, but if you watch them and you give them the freedom to pick their food, they're not always going to the sugar. They're going to the refrigerator and pulling out the cheese stick or the apple.
And the other thing is if they're busy, they tend not to graze at all. So some of the grazing is based on just boredom and using food as a habit to entertain yourself, which is what you do.
Yes.
So you're modeling for them the grazing.
Oh, I have to stop.
Listen to me, I just go right to it, didn't I? You've done quite a few diets. I mean, you listed here what worked, because you obviously did not list Atkins, and you said you did that. No. And you did it enough to have meat aversions.
Yes.
So,
yes. And I did it years ago.
Yep, you are my height. I'm maybe a little taller. You listed 5'8". I'm around 5'9", 5'10" if I really do my yoga well. No, I'm
stretch. I can hit 5'9" if I have big hair that day.
Totally. I try. No, I'm just kidding. But yeah, you and can I
yes, you
say
can say
you weigh 218 pounds, and you listed here your goal is 175, which is awesome. And who cares? How many times have you hit 175?
Not a whole lot. Not in years.
Why, when you hit 175 as you were gaining, why were you okay with that? And when did you stop monitoring?
I guess I feel like it's overreaching to get below that.
Well, that's protective, just so that you know. I know that when people list something that's 25 pounds above what they should be, that's a sign that I have to give myself leniency.
That I have room.
Yeah.
Room to fail.
Totally. See, you already didn't even have to finish it. You know this stuff, but no one ever says, hey, why would you do that? Yeah. Well, because you want to make sure you have room to eat and not feel bad about gaining.
Okay. I don't. It should be 130.
Wouldn't you be able to understand, though, honestly, when you look at that? Like, I understand why someone would give themselves that cushion. If you lose all this weight and you get all this positive reinforcement, what do you think would happen if you hit 150? How many people would talk to you about it? Everyone. How many people would give you attention for it? Positive. And negative, too. Although, are you married?
I am married.
Okay, so your husband's going to give you a lot of positive attention, which is also more maintenance.
Yeah.
So that could be seen as negative. But think of that, and then what would happen if you needed to eat for fun? Or what would happen if you needed to eat emotionally? Would you feel vulnerable? Would you feel like, I'm going to gain the weight back, right?
Right.
So then I'd have to feel shameful and bad. So by giving yourself a 25-pound increase...
I'm giving myself lots of room to go.
You are trying not to it's almost like you're lying about your problems. Does that make sense? Or hiding them. You're giving yourself a buffer. You're the first one that's called
me out on it, though.
Well, because it
says, that's a good goal.
Well, because most people who you've worked with have eating disorders and body image disorders, and they understand, they don't get it. So they actually are going to assist you in thinking that way because that's how they think. And trust me, I'm not criticizing you or judging you. I totally understand it. But you have to be aware of why you're making these decisions and why you would say 175, which is still considered overweight and inflammation. And there's all sorts of physical ramifications. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So what we've got to get you to do in this process is to not care about your weight.
Okay.
I'm so crazy. Oh my God, but weight is really important. I mean, really, why would you not use your weight? Because that keeps you from binging.
No, it doesn't.
I know. Like I'm stupid? No, it doesn't. In fact, when you need to eat for fun or boredom, do you really care about your weight?
No.
Do you really care about how fat you are?
Mm-mm.
You don't give a shit.
Not in that moment.
No.
Afterwards, maybe.
Yeah, you only care afterwards because you feel like someone's going to judge you.
Mm-hmm.
And people do. There's no doubt about it. There's a lot of social pressure to be thin and sexual as a woman. You know, you're not allowed to be sexy if you're fat. You're not allowed to be successful if you're fat. You know that, right?
Mm-hmm.
That you really have a problem because socially this is not acceptable. However, eating excessively is. And that's where you also want that social ability to eat whenever you want. You tend to eat, I'm just looking at your history, when you're bored.
Yes, I do.
Mindless.
Yes.
When did that start for you? At 20 years old, you were at physically, when I look at the numbers, you were at anatomical correct.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a couple years after you left the home?
Mm-hmm.
So when did you start just eating mindlessly? Do you recall that at all?
I would say when I got married. Right, or when I got engaged, more settled and.
So did you eat less before then, knowingly and willingly?
I don't think I paid attention to really how I was eating and what I was eating.
Okay, so something had to have happened to where it became more important to you, or food stopped being a non-factor and became a factor.
Yeah.
I don't know. Go in there and try to figure that out, because I think that's an important part of understanding your behavior today. Because your behavior is just continued, but you have yet to really look at that as the problem. You've always looked at the weight as being the problem. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So you really need to look in that direction, because if you're not willing to change that, then your weight will never really, your body will never get to where it should be anatomically, because your behavior is too important. Does that make sense to you?
Yes.
Okay. So we really have to look at that and be honest and at least aware of where you're at there.
Okay.
If you want to be able to eat if you're stressed out, and that is a really important behavior for you, that makes you feel better, that is something that you really want to keep in that circumstance, then you need to be realistic about what you want physically. Make sense?
Yep.
So go back in your mind and try to pull together all of those reasons. When did you start doing this? When did it get really bad for you? Like, I know you probably started gaining, right? But in your mind, do you remember gaining at that point?
I do remember gaining after I got engaged, because by the time I got married, I was 50 pounds heavier than when I first started dating my husband.
Okay, so that's an abrupt gain.
Yeah.
So did you accept it because he accepted it? Or were you uncomfortable with that?
It was kind of more...
Did you try dieting in there?
Not really. I tried Weight Watchers.
Okay, well, that's dieting.
But it was...
Weight Watchers.
Weight
Just
Watchers
think of the name.
But it was... I don't know. It was more, I got to do this to get in a wedding dress. But then it was, no, I'll just buy a bigger wedding dress.
Okay. Interesting. Just go into that. And when did you... Because you accepted a 50-pound gain, which I could say is somewhat good on one view. I mean, there's a lot of views we can take, but good in the fact that you really were okay with yourself and your marriage, that you didn't feel that he was not going to like you or leave you because you had gained 50 pounds. That tells me a lot about that. But at the same time, it also tells me that you let go of that because you needed the food. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Maybe it was more of I'm off the market and it's okay for me to...
Okay, that's why I asked if you ate less because you were on the market. Because if you didn't eat less because you were on the market, what you said would not make sense. But it came to your head because it does make sense. Your food and behavior really was with the context of being marketable. Even if you weren't aware of it, what you just said made it very obvious. That's why I asked earlier if the way you ate before had anything to do with trying to look good. It did.
Yep.
Because once you were secure, the way you wanted to eat manifested. So you really did have a desire to eat more before.
Just Rein it in.
You did, because you needed the physical.
Mm-hmm.
And then once you got secure in that relationship, I don't even need to stay this way. I'm okay with the outcome because I really, really want to eat liberally without restriction. So be honest with how you want to eat. The fact that you are being honest with the whole weight idea, that tells me too what you want to be able to keep. So if the goal is to remove emotional desires to eat that are dysfunctional, be realistic with what you really want to do. Because if you're not, you're more likely to feel like you're a failure.
Okay.
Does that make sense? Because you have some expectation that isn't even realistic. I use the idea of quitting smoking. When people quit smoking, many times people make the decision because their kids don't like it, their spouse doesn't like it, their parents don't like it. They make decisions because there's social pressure to quit. But they don't necessarily think about why they smoke. You know, many people smoke because it's a break from reality. It helps them decompress from stress. It gives them an excuse to not be involved in a conversation. So they get into a conflict, and going out to smoke removes the conflict. Does that make sense? They love to smoke in a social environment with other smokers. It makes them feel like a part of something, and not criticized or judged. When you smoke with other people who smoke, you really feel like someone likes you without judgment. So there's some peace and there's some positive things that come from smoking. So if you quit because of health reasons and because family wants you to, is it going to work long term? If you're not aware of why you smoke emotionally, you're not going to succeed. When people truly quit smoking and they're done, they are totally and completely aware of what it's going to take in the most difficult situations, because what they do is they go, even if the world were to end, even if my child were to die, even if I were to get a divorce, even if I get a disease, I'm not going to smoke again. They hit that vulnerability before they make the decision. So what you've got to do is you need to do that with your relationship with food. What could happen that would literally make you shove food in your face for emotional reasons? Be aware of your biggest vulnerabilities when you go into this, because those are the ones you have to try to work to reduce your need for. You have to process differently. Most people go into it thinking, oh, I obviously need to lose weight. Like, I obviously need to quit smoking. But they don't necessarily focus in on their biggest vulnerabilities emotionally, which is truly why they have a weight problem anyways. So what I'm going to suggest you do is not weigh. You don't even need to monitor your weight.
Okay.
You need to look at those vulnerabilities, and you need to rethink them and reprocess them to where when you think about them, you would say, no, honestly, I wouldn't eat. So then, let's say, snap of the finger, we put you in my body. All of a sudden, are you vulnerable to gain? Do you need to be concerned or scared about gaining? And do you really care about other people's opinion?
Hopefully, I work through, and then it doesn't matter.
You're right.
You know,
That's why I'm like, if you go through your biggest vulnerabilities and you are confident that you would not eat for that reason, what happens to your idea of needing the leniency with your weight?
You don't anymore.
You don't, and you don't care what anybody thinks.
Right.
But you don't need to have a major cushion. Your cushion of 25 pounds tells me how vulnerable you are with food. You need that food.
I need to find something else.
Well, or you really need
Or work
to
through
develop
it.
your sense of confidence that life is going to happen, and the worst case scenario is there. So could you handle it? Do you need something? Do you need a pacifier? You know, you can transfer the addiction. People do that all the time. I have people who used to smoke, who went to eating, lose the eating, go back to smoking.
Okay.
You know what I mean? It's like, because they don't know how to handle it. They don't know what to do. They don't know how to process information. And at some point, you have to develop the ability to process stress or to rethink what stress really is. And personalize that for you. You know, again, going through this, a lot of your issues sound like you just eat for mindless reasons.
Yep.
things get stressful, the first thing you think is, I just start eating. You go to the you go to the fridge and open it up and just look for whatever you can put in your face.
Grace.
Yeah, and it
Walk
doesn't
to the
have to
pantry
be.
and it doesn't
It doesn't have to be a binge.
No.
Yeah, in fact, how often are you binging? I don't even
Not
see that in
a whole lot, but
Yeah.
it'll be you walk by the pantry and grab, one of the kids' fruit roll-ups, or, somebody left something on the counter and just take a bite as I walk by. It's not that I'm sitting down and eating a pile
consciously.
of stuff. It's just this,
This is so common.
it's there and taste it on the way, or
While you're doing it, there is a tinge of guilt.
Yeah.
I know it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I don't even
Because you
think
think, I don't
afterwards,
even need it.
why did I do that? Why did I eat it? As I'm throwing the wrapper away.
What was I thinking?
Why did I even do this?
Then do you decide, I screwed it up? You know what? I'll just eat anything I want today, and I'm not going to worry about it.
Sometimes yes, sometimes no.
Yeah.
Sometimes I can just move on and, okay,
Yeah.
well, you did it, do better next time.
Well, when you're dieting, it tends to probably be more of the
Mhm.
binge, screw it, I've wrecked it.
Yep.
When you're not dieting, you tend to be more balanced in that
Yep.
process, or aware and less critical.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really important you do not see this as a diet,
Okay.
because you're more likely to binge if you approach this like a diet.
Okay.
Okay. Is this helping at all?
Yes.
All right, because I'm trying to get tons of information in it's now been 16 minutes.
Well, it's gone by fast.
I know. I was like, go. Here. Anything specific you want to work on that I haven't brought up?
I know you've loaded a lot. I guess I'm just more surprised that you called me on my weight goal.
That's the first thing I saw. I'm like, oh.
Usually that's
interesting.
That's what everybody says. Oh, that's a good goal for you. So
No, that's because they know you need food emotionally, and they think you should have a bump. You know what a bump is? You should have more fat because you need the food. That's because they need the food too. That's why they say that. Be realistic. Which is true. That's what I said. But it's the truth. But it's not realistic about your weight. It's realistic about your need for food. You do. You really need to be honest with yourself. I'm obviously going to paint a picture of extremes so that you have a bearing point. I'm not an extremist. I do not think everybody should be extreme. I speak extremism so that you have an awareness.
Okay.
Where are you in terms of total functional eating? Only hungry, only enough for hunger to go away. Where are you from the binge eater, binges all the time? Because there's constant fear, guilt, and judgment. You're somewhere in there, and it probably slides around depending on if you're on a diet. If you're on a diet, you tend to go towards the binge eater. If you're not on a diet, you're actually more towards function.
Mm-hmm.
But then there's that impulse. There's impulses that you continue to just do. Would you, if your daughter had your issue, I need you to see it from this point of view.
Yep.
Take your daughter, make her 16 years old. Now, how do you want her to feel about herself?
better than I do.
Well, how do you do that? What are you going to have to say to her? Because she's going to have your body. What are you going to have to say? Because you have a lot of wisdom about our culture and society's pressure. What would you tell her if she weighed 218 pounds?
Your value is not your weight. Your value is not your body and your appearance. Your value is...
Did you just hear what you just said?
I have to say that to myself.
Well, you
First
need to
off,
feel
and
it.
I
I
have to
don't.
feel it.
You can say it, but when you said that, weren't you feeling it?
Mm-hmm.
And you want your daughter to feel it. She's going to hear the words, but she needs to feel what you're feeling. Isn't that true of what you would want for your child? Like,
yes.
Seriously, you really... And what is it going to take for her to have a separation from her physical body to her her soul?
Mm-hmm.
What is it going to take? She has to
love
really
herself.
know herself.
She
She has to know herself before she can love herself. And she has to know that those things about her are what make her unique. Mm-hmm. Right? So when you talk about you see it as a mother. Mm-hmm. So if she had your body, you would want her to feel who she is and not go with what she sees.
Mm-hmm. True.
So where you lost that at some point?
I have.
I know that. I know that. But you have to look at that and go, how can I then feel? Because that is where the answer lies. Okay? Now I'm getting real deep. All this other stuff, it's just all playing the game, and I'm trying to get rid of the game. But now we have to go to the foundation of, who are you? What did your mom see? And how would she feel right now if she knew how you feel about yourself?
my mom is very much a mirror image of me. She
Okay,
has her
but
own
how
issues.
would she feel if she
would-
knew
Yeah,
how
she
you
would
feel
be-
about yourself?
Yeah, she would be upset. And be trying to show me something different.
It would not be good. She'd have a lot of sadness. And probably, what did I do?
Yeah.
That's what we as mothers do.
And that's what I don't want to pass on to my daughter.
Well,
too.
you are.
So, and yeah, I am.
Even if it's not active, it's passive, you know. And I think this for you is more than just, I need to stop eating emotionally. You really need to start really getting back in tune to who you are, what makes you unique, not physically, but who are you, what makes you you, and extremely valuable, and fall in love with yourself that way. You know, there's some beauty in that. Then your weight has less influence on how you feel about yourself, which means your issues with food also go away. Because you don't need food to feel good about yourself anymore, or good about the environment that's moving around you. A lot of times, if we don't have good sense of stability inside or with ourselves, the movement of our lives is hard because we don't have any bearings. We think our bearings come from outside of ourselves. Our bearings have to be controlled with our money, our food, our clothes, our car, our kids, our religion, and all this crap that's out here. That's what happens when we lose our intrinsic bearing of ourselves. Well, if you have a very clear idea of who you are and why you are fabulous, and you are in love with your soul, does this matter so much when this shifts and moves? It really doesn't. And isn't that what we're trying to teach our children?
Yes.
It's get an idea of who you are and what makes you unique to even your own parents and your siblings. Fall in love with that and make that very important so that this crap that goes on outside of you has less influence. When someone judges you and says, you're fat, what is it going to take for that not to hurt?
I have to know that there's more than
you have to
this and
yes,
be secure
and
in myself.
Totally.
Yes.
So that is where your answer lies, honey.
Okay.
Because you are your worst critic.
I am.
You are worse than
I am.
anything.
I am.
And it's because you really lost touch with what's on the inside, what truly is who you are. And that is the goal.
Okay.
The more you truly love yourself unconditionally, how do you think, God, I was listening to this book on tape, can't remember, but he was talking about love, and I think this is super important. Our Maker, whatever you believe in, that Maker, when he looks at you, what does he or she feel?
Unconditional love.
You knew that. You didn't even have to think about it.
No.
Is he criticizing you?
No.
Is he judging you?
No.
So
Not at
he
all.
sees you, or she sees you in a position that is just illuminating. So if you could see through those eyes, what changes? How do you see the trees? How
They're
do you see
beautiful
the
no
sun?
matter what.
Oh my God!
They're-
How do you
it's-
see
it-
animals, and how does that change how you view everybody around you? All of a sudden, if you could see through those eyes, how do you see your mom?
Unconditional love.
Oh,
You
and
love.
wouldn't you want her to feel that?
Yes.
Like if she could see herself from those eyes, what would that do for her? Isn't that what you're asking? Isn't that what you want for your own daughter?
Absolutely.
So that feeling you have is truly God essence love. And that is what I'm asking you to do for yourself. You really need to see yourself through those eyes. Can you do it? Can you look in the mirror and see yourself through those eyes so that you can let go of what you've been using as a definition of who you are, which is not through those eyes?
No.
That's the only way to get to what's authentic for you, is to see yourself with complete unconditional love, assuming your mistakes they don't even matter, because it's a part of just becoming a better, or what's a better word for that?
Evolving.
Yes, into what we are looking for, which is unconditional.
Yeah.
So all these mistakes are forcing you to love yourself unconditionally, even if people around you are critical. Make sense?
Absolutely.
I just hope you feel that and get it. Because that's really what needs to happen through this. You have to let go of all these things that you use to feel better about yourself. But the only way that's going to work is if you actually feel better about yourself.
Yes. I get it.
Oh, if I could have that in quotes. Feel better about yourself by feeling better about yourself. Okay. Do you have any questions?
No, I've got a lot to think about, though.
I think so. It really is just a moment of thinking.
It is.
And that's the beauty of being human. And having a prefrontal cortex. Thanks for sharing.